I want you to tell a story. What story are you going to tell?
A dirty one.
Oh, you're going to tell a dirty one?
Yeah.
All right.
It's the only kind of story you enjoy.
So this little sidewalk excursion was about 3 weeks into the caregiving job, but it was complicated, okay? Because on one hand, I'm having more fun hanging out with a 92-year-old Holocaust survivor in Beverly Hills than I am with my own friends at a bar. But on the other hand, what am I doing shuffling some old lady around town? I didn't come to Hollywood to be a caregiver, okay? I'm an actor.
Can you see me swinging here?
Yeah, but I only see half of you.
All right, well, I'll go out further.
Having just done a tribute video for another extraordinary woman that I knew, Victoria Mackenzie Childs, who passed away a couple weeks ago, I felt like I should start dusting off some home footage with Maria when I was caring for her. I'd kept it for so many years as a kind of private memorial to her, but Victoria's passing reminded me that people this special belong to the world, and it's important we see the private sides of public figures, especially when they're strong, iconic women who teach us never to take life too seriously.
Jayne Mansfield was known for a fabulous upper body.
Yes.
Across from her apartment was a window washer, and she started taking off her clothes to change and looked at the window washer. He didn't blink an eye. Finally, she pressed herself with a nude upper part
Against the glass.
against the glass of the window. And the guy yelled over, "What's the matter, ma'am? Have you never seen a window washer before?"
And see, she'd follow up silly jokes like that with a story about how her favorite teacher from childhood jumped off the roof of the school building as Hitler was tightening his grip. Most everyone Maria knew as a teenager either committed suicide or was killed by the Nazis. Hitler annexed Austria in March of 1938, and just 3 months earlier, she got married to her first love, Fritz.
Cesar's sister was a friend of Hitler. They were just friendly together. And she told me, "Would you mind if I introduce you to Hitler? He loves to laugh and you can be so funny."
My aunt, Adele.
Most of the world met Maria about a decade ago when her court case was made into a movie called Woman in Gold, where Helen Mirren plays Maria. And by the way, that's Maria's Aunt Adele in the gold portrait. But I met Maria long before the Weinstein Company discovered her, not even knowing who she was the entire first week of caring for her.
Fresh from the salon. See? I'm going to send this to your kids.
Her Supreme Court case to recover the paintings was a decade-long legal battle that resulted in 5 Gustav Klimts owned by Maria's uncle Ferdinand that were looted by the Nazis during World War II, being returned to Maria and 2 other heirs in 2006 to the tune of $325 million. Let's go ahead and rewind to the year 2000 so I can explain how I ended up in LA in the first place. I had this super cool professor named Charles Sawyer at Florida State who taught media production, which was my major, and he asked me one day what my plans were after graduation. I told him I didn't know, and he was like, "I can get you an interview with the TV show Blind Date."
Hi everybody, I'm Roger Lodge and welcome to Blind Date.
Turns out the guys who created that show were FSU alumni, so he set up an interview in Santa Monica, and I said, screw it, I'm moving to LA whether I get the job or not. I took my $1,000 graduation gift, packed everything I owned into my green Geo Storm, and headed west. Got the job at Blind Date as a production assistant and worked in reality TV for the next 5 years as a story producer.
You know?
I always
Your
nod.
face.
I know, but it's always I do that.
That's lovely.
Yeah, I scared somebody once. Me.
Yeah, I would say so.
You set this all up? You're my boy. You know that.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Hello. After 5 years in reality, my best friend Archie convinced me to be an actor. And a little known fact, when you decide to be an actor, you get a job in the food industry. Mine was catering special events at the Music Center in downtown Los Angeles, basically passing hors d'oeuvres to the people we wanted to be. I enrolled in class at Ivana Chubbuck Studios on Melrose Avenue in Hollywood. I started doing background work on movie sets, got my SAG card, landed an agent. Things were looking up for my acting career. Then I got a phone call.
So radiant, so self-assured. I would like to have that kid with you.
Oh, so about that phone call. It was my friend Tom, fellow actor. He said he recently answered a Craigslist ad for some caregiver position for some lady. Invited me multiple times to come to the house and meet her. I blew him off. I had acting things to do. But I felt guilty after a while and, kind of curious. She lived in Cheviot Hills, which is like southern Beverly Hills, and the day I came over, her son Peter was visiting from Tacoma. Maria rounded the corner on her walker with the 2 tennis balls on the bottom, and we locked eyes. And she said, "And you must be Gregor." It was truly love at first sentence, something I never even knew existed. It's like we had known each other for years. And despite having no clue what a caregiver actually did, Peter offered me a job I didn't even think I wanted or could handle, and I started 1 day a week. Full-time, that scared me. I was still an actor.
Did you do anything naughty while I was gone?
Well, what do you consider naughty?
I appreciate your attitude, but
What do you consider naughty?
3 years later, as a full-time caregiver, I was squeezing her left hand as hard as I could as she took her final breaths. Meeting Maria showed me she was more important than acting, but watching her die in front of me, wow, man, that changed my life. Every day I spent with her was a day I was slowly letting acting and what I thought were my dreams go. I thought it was a failure because I quit acting, but Maria's unconditional love erased all that and helped me realize what true success meant.
Ah, you are beautiful. You're going to make the girls very unhappy because you will look at them and look away.
After she passed, I decided if I reached the end of my life not having written everything down, no one would have believed a woman like that actually existed. So I wrote a book, and I've been invited to speak around the world about it, from Miami to Mexico to Australia. The Women's International Zionist Organization sponsored a lot of Love Maria events, and it was all just to spread her love as far and as wide as possible. I wanted every single person on earth to meet Maria through me. My biggest sigh of relief came from Maria's oldest son, Chuck, who she described as, "He's never told a lie." And he said I did his mother justice. If I hadn't passed the Chuck test, I probably wouldn't even be alive right now.
Hey man, what's your take on soulmates?
Are you having some weird fling with that old lady?
I also turned the book into a play in New York. I had found this British theater director that had never directed a play outside of the UK, and so it was such a proud moment for everybody, and I was so glad to introduce Maria to the East Coast.
My aunt, who was the sister of my mother, she had a lot of what was called a salon. She knew a lot of the great people in Vienna, the Strauss and Klimt and Gustav Mahler.
Maria was a walking piece of history, had taken on an entire country herself, a country that betrayed her and was frankly hoping she would die before they would have to give those paintings up. But what I admired about her most was her joie de vivre, her sense of humor that never disappointed and never faded.
At that time, the bathrooms were not that you have now, where you pull the chain and the water runs. You had toilets with lids on top. At that time, they had what was called a chapeau claque, a hat that folded, that you had under your arm. And one gentleman at a big party at my mother was apparently so nervous, and he came in, and my mother almost exploded with laughter, but she was very well behaved. And she told him, "You better go outside. You took the toilet seat under your arm.
I kept my agent in case a big audition arose, and of course, one did. During a shift one day, I got a call about an audition for Sons of Anarchy, which was a popular TV show at the time. I convinced Tom to come in and cover for me on his day off, even though he was really unhappy about it, and I rushed to Santa Monica to meet the casting director. They had me read a scene, and she said something to me that literally you never hear at auditions. The director is in the next room in a meeting. Can you stick around to meet him? I didn't take that as I got the job, but the fact that she wanted, the director to see me read, you just don't see that. You're usually told, thank you and see you later. I was already really stressed out about Tom not being happy about filling in, and, I missed Maria. And so it was still a shock when the next words came out of my mouth. Actually, you know what? I know this is going to sound weird, but I have this woman at home. I'm actually taking care of her right now. She's really special, and I need to get back to her. I mean, I can't stick around any longer. I'm sorry. The casting director was utterly shocked and had probably never in her life heard such a response from an actor. I was just as in shock as her, but I rushed out of there, and I got back to the house, and I was so grateful to relieve Tom, and I took one look at wide smiling Maria, and I knew I was in the right place. She grew up in one of the wealthiest families in Austria at the turn of the 20th century, yet she drove a 92 Ford Taurus well into her 80s. She said her friends were always like, why don't you go and buy a Mercedes? And she always said, what for? I have a car that works. She came from outrageous opulence, yet understood what true wealth meant.
Don't you dare.
No, I won't take a picture, don't worry. I would never take a picture. Let's go out this way.
You're a very good looking man.
Once we were at the Beverly Hills Hotel and we see legendary actor Michael Douglas saunter by to the front desk, Maria almost flips out. She loves the guy. She's trying to whisper to me, you know who's over there? I'm like, I know, I see him. And I told her she should say hi, and of course she turns into a scared little schoolgirl. So I go up to Michael and I'm like, I have a friend who wants to meet you, and I drag her over there. She gets comfortable pretty quickly and starts pouring on all the accolades. I love you, I love your father, I love this movie, I love that movie. Michael asks her where her accent's from. Oh, Austria, Mr. Douglas. And after they're done, Michael turns to leave. And she very loudly says to me, he's so short. Michael literally stops dead in his tracks, like 10 feet away. He turns around halfway, cocks his head just like he did in the movie Romancing the Stone, almost as if he's like, should I confront her about that? And thank goodness he decides not to say anything, and he just struts off. I was so embarrassed, I practically dragged her out of there. Another time when I first started caring for her, she came to a screening of a movie I had acted in called Night Before the Wedding, and it had a ton of swear words in it. So when the movie ends, I find her down the dark aisle. And I'm like, could you hear it okay? And she said, I heard every fucking word.
Here.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you, my love. Thank
Let's have some breakfast.
you.
Let's have some breakfast.
I'm very fond of you.
Well, good. Well,
What you want?
I'm
want
fond
me
of
to
you.
Go to the kitchen.
And I'll make you a soft-boiled egg.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't feel good.
She was gone 3 weeks later. It was the first time I saw somebody I deeply loved die right in front of me. I started sleeping at the house because I didn't want her out of my sight. I mean, nothing on earth could have pulled me away from her in those final days. She always told me she wished she had met me when she was young, and I could see it in her eyes that she was serious, and I'd smile and chuckle and then have to leave the room and secretly cry into some bathroom towels. I think we felt the same way about each other and that we were just 60 years too late. At Maria's funeral, her daughter, Margie, came up to me and she said, you were the last love of my mother's life. Part of me knew that, but the fact that her own daughter said that to me, it really broke me. Everybody who met Maria fell in love with her. But for some reason, I feel like I fell the hardest. I fell in love with her. Not in a romantic way, but a love knows no age way. No race, no religion, no gender. It's just love. There's so much more in the book, so many little crawl spaces to her fairy tale upbringing in Vienna, her escape story with her husband Fritz, all the eminent musicians and artists she and her family knew. I mean, her mother used to go to parties where Puccini was playing the piano, like Puccini in the flesh was taking requests at a party. And I haven't even gone into her decades-long love affair with Placido and how I ran into him at the music center. And anyway, I'll save it for the book.
I've been watching from above to make sure that you find the right woman, because if you don't, I'll shoot the lightning down.
Oh, you will?
Yeah.
Well, I found a right woman. You're certainly a right woman.
Yeah, but I'm too old for you.
No.
Much too old. No.
Then why do I keep coming back? I keep coming back.
Yeah.
If you were too old, I wouldn't show up to work. It's true.
You lie like an Austrian.